Meet Mythros, the new Mythmaker Creations mascot. You'll see him a lot in future videos as he'll help narrate upcoming projects. For this series though, we'll be learning something new together as I show you how he's made. I've done some animation work in the past, but this is the first time I have worked with Adobe Character Animator. As this is new technology for me, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew. I want to create a project that will give me the quickest possible introduction to this software that results in something usable in the shortest possible time. Over the years, I've found this is the best way to introduce myself to something new. I learn best when actively working on a project, so that's a must. But right now, I don't want to get overwhelmed with information I'm not ready for. So I plan to keep things simple. However, before we get going, why do I even need a mascot? Making videos for this YouTube channel is another new process for me, and I'm learning a lot as I go. In the last video, I discovered that there will be times when there are spaces to fill when not much is happening on screen. I'd rather not rely on generic stock footage for those times, and if I showed my face on camera, you'd be so distracted by how unbearably handsome I am that you'd forget to concentrate on the video. I've also always had an interest in animation. I've wanted to try out Character Animator since I first heard of it, and finally, let's face reality here, having a custom animated mascot is awesome. So, what even is Adobe Character Animator? In short, it's software that lets you animate a puppet by tracking your movements from a web camera. The puppet will not only match its movements to you, but also lip-sync the character to match your speech. In the past, this process was incredibly time-intensive, as each element would need to be animated manually to match the audio clip. To get started with this, I went to YouTube to look for beginner's tutorials. I soon came across a channel called OK Samurai. The videos on this channel are on the Adobe website itself, so this is your go-to channel if you want to learn how to use Adobe Character Animator, and I found them super helpful. After watching just a few videos, I realised this process was surprisingly straightforward and could be broken down into just 3 basic steps for what I need in this project. Create the puppet, rig the puppet, and use the puppet. With that out of the way, I moved on to designing the character. I wanted something that looked cool, fit with the brand, and most importantly, was simple to animate. I had a rough idea of the character that I wanted to create in my head, and here you can see me just playing with shapes and iterations on those shapes to find the style that looked right and to figure out the best way to bring that character to life. As this is just a starter project, I don't want to worry about getting lots of little details right, so I oversimplified this character. Why worry about things like arms, legs and a neck when floating hands, feet and a head would get the job done with minimal fuss? Once I finished my sketch, I took it over to Illustrator, where I created vector outlines for the character. As I usually create characters for illustration that don't need to be broken down into component parts, I soon realised I needed a few extra steps in the sketch phase to make this right. I needed to focus on getting every subcomponent right, not just the character as a whole. I took the character back into Photoshop and worked on refining the concept. I wanted to add more details so that I had less to fix in Illustrator, and I needed to create each component individually. This included creation of various mouse shapes that will be used for lip syncing during the animation. With that done, I finished outlining it in Illustrator. To create these outlines, I used a calligraphic brush that worked with pen pressure to create lines with variable widths. The quickest way I've found to make nice, clean outlines for characters is to overlap the strokes and then expand your artwork so that you are left with overlapping shapes. Selecting all these shapes and using the Shape Builder tool in Illustrator lets you cut off the excess elements and join the shapes into a nice, neat outline. Once I had those clean vector lines, I copied everything onto a Photoshop canvas that was large enough for a 4K video, making sure to import everything as layers to keep each component separate. From here, I used the Magic Wand tool to quickly select empty areas, expanding the selection to ensure that there were no ugly gaps, and then filled in base colours on a new layer of the line art. This allows me to clip shadows and highlights to that base colour layer, making the colour process in this artwork quick and painless. This part of the process is going to be different for each designer. Everything could have been done in Illustrator or Photoshop, or maybe you might even want to use something like Procreate on an iPad. As my dog recently decided to eat my Apple Pencil, I use this process until I can get a replacement. However, the iPad is my illustration tool of choice these days. When creating this artwork, the important thing to remember is to name your layers correctly. If done correctly, when you import your file into Character Animator, it will automatically assign layers to body parts based on the layer names. Create a new scene with this puppet and then resize it to fit, and you should be ready to test how your puppet is working for you. If you've named your layers right, then the puppet should already be moving in time with what it sees from your webcam. As you can see, Mythros is bouncing about all over the place, but that was easily fixed by pinning the feet to the floor. With that fixed, I moved on to the next issue. The mouth wasn't syncing correctly. This turned out to be a naming issue for some layers, along with some elements that I forgot to colour in. Luckily, these were all easy fixes. All I had to do was update the layer names and the colours in my Photoshop file, and the Character Animator auto-detected those changes. The next issue was that the eyes weren't moving at all. This was no simple fix, and it took me a while to find the root cause. I eventually found a video by a YouTube creator called Griffinmore that explained that pupils were so large they had no room to move. This was fixed by creating a much larger eyeball for the pupils to move around, but reducing the fill on that eye so that it can't be seen in the project. Clipping the pupils to the eye colour in the Character Animator keeps the pupil from travelling outside the eye. Truth be told, I continue to struggle with this one as it doesn't seem to work well when I'm wearing glasses. I think fixing this will have to wait for another video. So, there you have it. This is Mythros in all his glory. As you can see, he's still definitely in his earliest form. It'd be great if he could move his hands, if his eyes were more active, if his hair could move, and maybe even if he could turn his head. But remember, this video is only the first step in Mythros' story. To follow his evolution, subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for notifications when part 2 is released. In the meantime, do Mythros a favour and like this video if you enjoyed it, and tell me in the comments what you think of Mythros. Do you think he'll make a good addition to the channel? Let me know, and stay tuned for more videos and the creative process coming soon.